you. All right. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is David Patrick Harry with Church of the Eternal Logos. And tonight, I want to talk to you guys about how your providence is now. Life, synchronicity, and the pressure of evil. And so today is the feast day of St. John Chrysostom. And so I thought, what better than to stream on this lovely book, if you guys have read it, On the Providence of God by St. John Chrysostom. And so I got readings from St. John Chrysostom, St. Gregory Palamas, St. Maximus the Confessor, and St. John of Damascus. We're going to be getting into the concept of providence and how this can be useful for us right here, right now in our lives. One of the things that I've recently been talking to people about is the surreal nature of the world and where we find ourselves. And that's really what I want to talk about, how your providence is now. And so whether it be the Austria and it's wanting to lock down the unstabbed, we see the same thing happening in Singapore. We see the Pfizer CEO calling truth tellers criminals. We see that our own government is trying to kill us. We see that our country is falling apart, the inflation of our currency, that there's not a whole lot of hope in the world. And I've done some one-on-ones with people recently, and we talked about providence, that it is surreal. And your providence is to be here, that God makes no mistakes. And your providence is to be here now. Now, I'm not talking about Ram Dass's book, Be Here Now. I'm talking about the call for resistance that all of us have to do, that this is somehow tied to our salvation, that the atrocities, that the evil that we know is going on in the world right now, this is an opportunity for our salvation. You and I did not choose to be here at this point in human history, but we know for a fact that this is a transitory inflection in human history. This is a novel time. Now, are we in the end times? As I've said before, I don't know. But somebody who I give great credence to is Abbot Trifon, and he personally believes that the Antichrist is alive and well. Now, is that the case? Maybe so, maybe so. But with what's going on in the world, we are called to resist it. This is our opportunity for salvation. This is our providence. Again, God's providence for us at individual levels is tied to this, what we would call special providence. There's general providence, which is God maintaining the universe, right? That the sort of contingency and what's non-contingent, that God's providence sustains the world, right? We know that the sun's going to rise up tomorrow morning, most likely. But then we have special providence, this concept of special providence. And special providence is how God works in our lives, personally. And we are all facing things right now. Now, you may be in hardships with where you're at financially. You may be forced to make difficult decisions, whether regarding your health, regarding what you're going to be mandated to inject inside your body. And the decisions you make matter. And it's actually tied to your salvation. Now, I'm not telling anybody who's been stabbed or who's fallen victim to this global plan. Again, anybody who's read the globalist work, anybody who's read COVID-19 by Klaus Schwab, The Great Reset, we already know what these stabbies are about. We already can see, as I've talked to somebody recently today, about the regionization of the world. What does the book of Revelation talk about? That the beast system, that in the end times there's going to be 10 toes of the beast. There's going to be 10 regions in the world. And what do we see right now happening? We see exactly that. The dissolution of borders regarding countries. This is the beginning of the globalist process of the one world government, where Canada, the United States, and Mexico is going to be one nation. Central America, parts of South America, probably Brazil, Argentina, Chile, other parts are going to be another nation. We see Russia basically taking back its Soviet territories, and we see the Turkitization, right? All those stand countries. What are those stand countries? Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan. These are Mongolian remnants. This is a unique identity of Mongol identity mixed with Islam. And we see Turkey, and we see Afghanistan, and how the Taliban has this immense sort of pact or allyship with Turkey. What's this all about? This is about the region of the sort of what Klaus Schwab calls in his book the sort of the regions of the world, right? And we see China. China's going to take over Taiwan. Japan doesn't even have a military. The U.S. is supposed to protect them, and our military is too concerned about pregnant women in cockpits and transgender people. And the latest thing I saw today was the diversification of the Marines. You got to be kidding me. And so, Lord have mercy on any nation that's dependent upon the U.S. to defend them. We don't have a real military. In fact, it's being purged of anybody with any real understanding of masculinity or defense or anything like that. So, Lord have mercy on any country that is going to be dependent upon the United States military. And of course, that involves us as Americans, or people who I know many of you guys aren't in the United States. You're in different Western European nations and Eastern European nations. But this is a difficult time. But you have been chosen by God to be here. It's your providence. And it's my providence. And we have to realize that all the things that are outside our control is providential in some way or another. Like, you can't stop the Great Reset. You can't stop the inflation of our currency. You can't stop the fact that they're going to try to take away all private property. You can't stop it. But what we can do, and the things that we can control, is how we react and our free will and our choices and how we treat others. And that is all that we're judged on. And so what is this thing? It's that through free will, God is choosing to recognize his own. How else? So once you see it from that perspective, this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity. And so from that perspective, the pressures, the evil pressures on the world, you can feel it. No matter where you're at in the world, you can feel the evil. I just did a stream. My last stream was on Travis Stock, again. But we saw the satanic symbolism within that concert. Quite clear. Something's going on. Was it human sacrifice? I believe it's likely. But you can look at Kylie Jenner, her new makeup line, and how that's, the whole Nightmare on Elm Street and her commercial literally showering in blood. I saw that one of the Island Boys, I saw on Twitter recently, said that he sold his soul last week to the devil. And all of us are being asked to sell our soul at one level or another. And I believe that the stabbies are one form of it, because it genetically alters your DNA. It's taking away the image of God in you. And so are you going to be complicit with an evil, mandating one world government, or are you going to resist it? And that is your salvation, and this is your providence, and this is how God begins to decipher who is on his side and who isn't. I recently was in California, and I'm not going to name what church I went to, but I'll just suffice it to say that the priest, I kid you not, his homily on this past Sunday, which was the reading of that Sunday, was about Christ stepping out of the boat, crossing the Sea of Galilee, and the woman who has the hemorrhaging touching his cloak, touching his hem, and being healed. He can feel the power leave him, and she's healed. And then he goes up to Jairus, the leader of the local synagogue, and his daughter is laying there dead, and everybody's crying outside, and he takes two apostles in there. He takes the parents of the little girl, and he tells her, "Little girl, rise up." He says, which is interesting. If you look in Mark, it's one of the few instances where the Aramaic word is actually used, Tabitha Kumi, but that's a whole nother thing. But what's the priest do when I'm at this church? His homily regarding this passage is telling people to go get stabbed. I kid you not. I kid you not, this is an Orthodox priest, and his reasoning, this is how he started his homily, telling people, so we have the gospel reading. Again, those of you, if you don't go to an Orthodox liturgy or go to an Orthodox church, you need to. And so the priest, I'm literally standing there with my girlfriend, and we're the only ones not with a mask on. And what's the homily say? Well, Guys, I know that some of you have been listening to some hierarchs in the church, and they've been promoting conspiracy theories regarding the coof, regarding the numbers, regarding the severity of the disease, regarding the stabbies. And I just want to tell you that you need to stop listening to these people, and that you need to be good. You need to be wise as serpents, and you need to take hold of the medical opportunities. And he literally told people to go get the stabby, and if you don't, you're foolish. I kid you not. And this is within our own Orthodox churches, guys. It doesn't mean he doesn't have the grace of the priesthood. It doesn't mean his sacraments aren't valid. They are. But we are in a difficult time. This is not like any other time in human history. At the same time, though, as we'll see, it is a sort of similar time in human history, that the evils of the world, that the Orthodox Church and its hierarchy, even, cutting out the tongue of St. Maximus, cutting off his hands, exiling St. John Chrysostom to the Caucasus Mountains in Armenia, of which is where he wrote on the providence of God. This is the last thing that St. John Chrysostom wrote before dying. And what is he talking about? Is that the evils in the world are still God's providence. We can't lose faith, and we must be strong, and that our salvation is tied to how we react to these things. So your providence is right now. You and I are chosen to be here at some level. Now, it is kind of surreal, and it does get scary. You follow the news, you see what's going on. I saw the monoclonal antibody hotline down in Texas is basically preventing healthy white people from getting that treatment, that you basically have to be a person of color over the age of 65. We are in unique circumstances. But through suffering, we become more Christ-like. And so as Father Peter here said in his Martyrs series, maybe we need to look at the Orthodox Christians that were killed by the Bolsheviks in 1917 who said, thank God for the persecution. Thank God for the suffering, because it allows me to demonstrate my worthiness to follow Christ and be more like Christ. And so this is what we're doing right now. You and I, we may be, if you're in the United States and if you're in a red state, you're very lucky, right? My life is basically totally normal in Indiana. I can go anywhere. I don't have to wear a mask anywhere. I can do anything that I was doing basically before the coup, before the pandemic. But I can see what's going on. Again, look at Germany, look at France, look at Italy, look at Greece, look at Austria, look at Singapore, look at Russia. And this is another thing I got to say. I am getting really annoyed with the American Orthodox community venerating based Russia, based Putin. Shut up. Dude, Putin just came out promoting the unification of global vaccines. Come on, guys. Get over the whole Russia thing. Yes, they have beautiful churches. Yes, they are very important in the Orthodox culture and how we do things. But come on. Get over the based Russia, based Patriarch Kirill. What are you talking about? Are you totally divorced from what's going on? Are you not following? Moscow freaking has lockdowns for the unstabbed as well. And I think they want people over the age of 65 to stay home. They got passports. You got the promotion of the QR codes tattooed on people. And come on. So it's through the suffering that we can be more Christ-like. But we have to speak truth. We have to realize that we are in this together. And so ask and you shall receive. Ask and you shall receive. Our journey to where we are right now is a give and take between our wills and God's will. Most of us right here are now Orthodox. We are becoming aware of Orthodoxy. And this is probably filled with a lot of synchronistic activity that led you to the understanding of Orthodoxy being the one true church. Maybe it was watching certain people's contents. Maybe it was you diving down church history. Maybe it was all the sinful things that you were engaged with before. Could have been the New Age. Could have been psychedelics. Could have been magic and the occult. Could have been other forms of Christianity. I don't know what it is. But ultimately, if you're here watching this stream, There has been a series of events that have brought you here that is tied both to your free will and you aligning with God's will. Now, I'm not saying it's God's will for anybody to watch my content. That's the last thing I'm saying. But where you are, Orthodoxy and the Eastern Orthodox Church is the one true Christian church. This is the one true faith. That's it, period. And it has been really disappointing to see the reaction of the church during this pandemic. And to see now Patriarch Bartholomew going and talking about how Joe Biden is a real man of God and how great he is as a world leader. And literally the Archbishop of Goarch and Patriarch Bartholomew going to a conference and giving a humanitarian award to the CEOs of Pfizer and Moderna. I kid you not. I kid you not. But Orthodoxy is not a centralized ecclesiological structure. We aren't Catholics. We are decentralized. And we still have the one true theology, and you and I have to learn that theology and maintain that theology because you and I are providential to be the body of Christ in the world. We are called to be Christ in the midst, as Abbot Trifon says. That is your and I's providence. And you can either choose that or you don't. That's up to you. That's totally up to you. But the entire journey to where you are right now has been a give and take between your will and God's will. And each little thing that occurs, what's your decision? What choice are you going to make? And so a lot of us got here, and I did a whole stream on escaping the matrix and how Christ is the bottom of the rabbit hole, which is the truth. And Christ is the truth. You've heard me say it, yammer on time and time again, that truth is a who, not a what. And if that's the case, then in your heart, if anybody's made a sincere prayer at some point in your life and you said, Lord, I just want to know the truth. You know, maybe you're a Protestant, maybe you're New Age, maybe you're a Hindu, yogi. I don't know what you were, but you wanted to know the truth. And maybe at that point you thought that was the truth. Fine, fair enough. I was the same way. But then you can't stay comfortable. And then you make the choice and you keep going down that rabbit hole and you keep learning. That is you ultimately choosing Christ. And eventually that's going to bring you to orthodoxy. But this whole thing about learning the church history, learning the theology, this isn't an intellectual activity, guys. You can't sit here and go online and claim you're Orthodox and not go to liturgy and not read Scripture and not try to be part of a parish. That's not how this works. Because your own judgment, say you die tomorrow in a car wreck, what are you going to do with the knowledge you are given? Yes, knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. But with power comes great responsibility. And responsibility is what we're ultimately going to be judged by. Your responsibility to be a Christian. Your responsibility to be a husband. Your responsibility to be a mother. That's what you're going to be judged by. And so if you're just doing this whole thing and it's just an intellectual activity, you're running out of time. Now, are we in the end times? Is this the revelation? I don't know. But dang, come on. You can't just LARP online. Let's go. You got to get into a church. You got to actually make this stuff real. Because if you don't, your judgment is dependent on it. Your own salvation is dependent upon it. Okay? And so Matthew 7:7, what is, ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be open to you. And that is why all of us are here right now. But what are you going to do with it? And so synchronicity and providence. Our journeys to ortho are filled with synchronistic activity. I just did a wonderful stream with our great Orthodox sister, A Devotional Heart. Go check out her YouTube channel. Mods, if somebody can, if you could, please throw that link into the live chat for other people. Go subscribe to our Orthodox sister, Allison, A Devotional Heart. But our journeys to ortho are filled with synchronicity. And I'm going to talk a little bit about Jungian understandings of synchronicity. Yes, I know what that is. And yes, in that stream, I talked about the day that I devoted my life to Christ was 11/11/18. And 11/11/2021 was the day that we did that stream over with Allison. And so, yes, I get it. The angel number is 11/11, 111, 222, 444. I get it. And so synchronicity and the whole New Age concept of synchronicity, again, it's tied to your own personal experience. And so the causality that Jung wants to talk about, this sort of point where the external world matches your sort of internal state and that nobody can understand the causal relationship and the significance other than yourself, I get it. And those things still happen to me now. But it's not some haphazard happening in the world. It's an alignment between my will and God's will. And so the sincere pursuit of truth is ultimately why we all should be here. And so I do these one-on-ones with people, and time again, what's the thing that unites us all? Is that we genuinely want to know the truth. And when you're given the truth, now it's your responsibility. What are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with it? And that's, again, what all of us are going to be judged by. And so we are where we choose to be in our lives. I'm talking about your profession. I'm talking about your fitness. I'm talking about your relationships. You are where you've chosen to be in relationship to how you react to God's will. God is leading you towards Him. Again, it's all providence. But how are you responding, and what are you choosing, and are you getting too comfortable and you're getting too lazy? That, I've talked with somebody recently, and he knows who he is. Shout out to Nathaniel. God bless you, brother, and your family. They have to make a very serious decision. He has beautiful twin boys. And his family is faced with a decision where somebody's going to have to probably get stabbed, and if they don't, they're going to lose their income. And this is really serious because he has been, his family's been praying for the opportunity that they find themselves in. And now that they're in it, they're about to lose it. Because, and again, it's God's providence. Where you're at, your salvation is tied up with everything around you in the causality of the world. Maybe you have a dying relative. Maybe you have to help your sibling out, and try to find God. Who else is going to do it besides you? Again, that's your providence, and it's tied to your salvation. God has put you there, and you have chose to be there through a series of decisions. And we have to realize that where you are right now in your world, in your life and in the world, it's your providence. And you need to take radical ownership of it. Yeah, we can talk about Jocko Willink, radical ownership. It's time, guys. Take radical ownership over everything in your life. Everything in your life. Because everything around you is meaningful. Everything around you is meaningful. The relationships you have and the quality of relationships you have. Are you being Christ in the midst? Are you being Christ in the midst? Are you a conduit for God to enter the world? Because as Orthodox Christians, we are the body of Christ. And so, in regard to these synchronicities, the closer that we get to God and the seriousness we take all this stuff, we can better be tools for God. And one of the stories that I want to share with you of somebody doing this is Abbot Tryphon. And I've been listening to a lot of his content, and he has one really great story that he used to be a runner. Now he's have hip problems. He has pretty bad arthritis, and so he's not able to be as active as he used to be. But Abbot Tryphon shares this story where I believe it was in the Portland area. He used to go on these long runs and these hikes in these beautiful, beautiful green forests. And years ago, he was in the area for a retreat, and he had multiple hours to get away. And he thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go run these paths or walk these paths that I used to run, that I used to hike. And so he packed up his sandwich, had a thermos of coffee, and he gets there, drives up, parks in the parking lot. There's only one car in the parking lot. Great. This is excellent. Nobody's going to be there. I'll be able to be left alone, get my stuff, go walk the trails, see the beauty of nature. And so he starts walking the trail. And he starts walking the paths, and maybe an hour or so, a couple hours pass by, and he gets to the place where when he was younger, he would sit and he would eat his sandwich, and he'd drink his coffee or his water, and he'd just kind of take in the beauty of the surroundings, and then he'd go back on his way. And he gets to where he would usually eat his sandwich. And what does he see? Well, there's a young man sitting there. And he calls out to not startle the young man. And says, "Hello there, how are you?" And the young man turns around, he's frightened. He's terrified. Looks like he saw a ghost. And he says, "Are you an angel?" And Abbot Tryphon kind of giggles. "No, I'm not an angel. I'm an Orthodox priest. I'm a monk, but I was just walking these trails and these paths. I used to run these when I was a younger man. And I'm curious, would you be interested, would you do me the courtesy of sharing my sandwich with me? Would you share my coffee with me? Can I come over and sit next to you?" And the young man says, "Yes, you can do that." And so he goes over and he starts talking to him, and he splits his sandwich, gives him a piece of his sandwich, and gets the thermos of his coffee out and shares the coffee with the young man. And he says, you probably wonder why I asked if you're an angel. And he then pulls a revolver out of his, I would assume maybe a sweatshirt pocket. And he says, "I came here to kill myself. And before you came, I prayed to God that if he wanted me to live, to please give me a sign. And that's when you yelled out and asked me how I'm doing. And that's why I thought you were an angel." And Abbot Tryphon asked him, "May I please have that? May I please have that revolver?" And he takes the revolver and empties the bullets, throws them into the woods, and talks to the young man. And he says that, "My girlfriend broke up with me. I got fired from my job. My parents think I'm a disappointment. I have nothing in my life going for me." And Abbot Tryphon tells him, "Everything's going to get better. God loves you. God loves you. Don't do this." And so they start talking, and the kids start smiling again, and they start having a good conversation. And then about an hour later, they start hiking back, and his car, this young kid's car, was the car that Abbot Tryphon parked next to. And they were in deep, deep woods. What are the chances? What are the chances that they actually come across each other? And this is because Abbot Tryphon could be a conduit for God. That's providence. That's synchronicity. That's being Christ in the midst. That's what all of us are called to be. But what decisions, what are the choices we're going to make? Did Abbot Tryphon, when he decided, "You know what, I'm going to go out there and do this. I'm going to do X, Y, Z," did he think that he was going to be that person for that? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But that's what we're all called to. And your providence is right now. And you need to be that for the people around you. You need to be somebody to bring people closer to God. That's what we're all called to. That's what we're all called to. Another example, and I talked about this in my conversation with Allison, A Devotional Heart, that Abbot Tryphon has another great example of being Christ in the midst. He was sitting at a coffee shop, I believe it was in the Seattle area, and he's sitting there by himself on the MacBook getting some work done, and two young gentlemen walk in, and there's not many people in the coffee shop, and two young guys walk in, and they actually sit at a table next to Abbot Tryphon, and one of them says, "Man, you'd have to be an old dumb man to still believe in God." And if anybody's seen who Abbot Tryphon is, I mean, he's dressed like a monk. He's in all black. He has, he's an abbot. And, and I thought about myself, what would I do in that situation? Well, I'd fire back. I'd have something to say. I'd be sharp-tongued. I would try to humiliate them. I'd show, "Oh yeah, I'm the dumb one," and then go into some apologetic debate. What does Abbot Tryphon do? He gets up. He goes to the barista. He asks if they have gift cards. And she says they do. And he asks, "May I purchase two $10 gift cards for the young gentleman here in the coffee shop? But please don't give it to them until I leave." And so she says, okay. And then he goes back to his table. He finishes what he was doing on his MacBook. He packs up his stuff and he leaves. And just so happened, through God's providence, 2 months later, he's back in the Seattle area and he visits this same coffee shop. And just so happens that those two young men are there. And they're angry with Abbot Trifon. They come up, why did you buy us gift cards? And he says, because God told me to. And the humility of Abbot Trifon to not engage with them in a adversarial way, to not compete with them, to not out pridefully demonstrate his superiority over them, of which I would certainly do. The kid who told him that he's an old dumb man begins to break down in tears. And he asks Abbot Trifon for forgiveness, and he says, you're forgiven as soon as the words came out of your mouth. That is how we become Christ in the midst. This is the providence that all of us are called to embody in the world every day. And especially if we're going to be Christians, and especially if we're moving in the end times, guys. And we have to be that for the people around us. We have to try to bring people closer to Christ. And so the fact that we're existing right here, right now, are we in the, maybe. And if maybe this is the end times. And if it is, it's our providence to be here. It wasn't our providence to be here in the 50s. It wasn't our providence to be, during the Enlightenment. It's not our providence to be here during the Great Schism. It's our providence to be here in time, because somehow God has put us in a position for us to be salvific, for us to find our salvation is to resist the things that are happening in the world right now. Right now. And so at the same time, the fear, the pandemic, the powers that be, the fact that the U.S. government's the greatest threat to my life right now, it's also a blessing. It's also an opportunity. It's also a way for me to try to be worthy enough to suffer and martyr myself for Christ. And so that's what today's stream is about. And we're going to be diving into some of the wisdom of the church fathers regarding all this stuff. So anyway, smash that like, guys. Please smash that like. Want to say I will have a new members-only video up tomorrow. And so if you appreciate what I'm trying to do over here at Church of the Eternal Logos and you would like to support, please become a website member at davidpatrickcarey.com/register. I would greatly appreciate that. It's for $5 a month. You can have access to an exclusive video library. And I'll have a new members video up tomorrow, of which should be a fun one. I'll be talking about Will Smith. Yeah, you're thinking, Will Smith, what the heck? Well, I think there's enough there, I think, that we can have a pretty interesting little rant on Will Smith and following the dictates of what a biblical father and man should be. And I've been looking at much of the goings on in Will Smith's life right now. He has this new series of, The Best Shape of My Life, where he's doing this memoir. And his wife, Jada, who he's been married to for a long time, she had an affair with another guy. And then you look at their children. Willow identifies as LGBTQ. Jaden, his son, has openly gay relationships. And so you see Will Smith as this sort of archetype of the man, right? I mean, think about Independence Day and Hitch and all these different movies he was in. Yet at the same time, in his personal life, the lack of authentic masculinity has led to total inversion in certain ways. And so I want to talk about that on my members only, and that video will be up tomorrow. Also, if you'd be interested in any one-on-ones, we could set some of those up for next Thursday. You can do so with the following link right here. You can set up a one-on-one if you want to talk about theology, philosophy, fitness, goal setting, world religions, mysticism, whatever topic you'd be interested diving into, orthodoxy. Maybe you want to go to an Orthodox church. Maybe you're finally ready to take that step from this conceptual, intellectual place, which is where I began, into a real lived experience, becoming part of a parish, finding other people that you can talk about Christ and what's going on in the world with, I'd be happy to chat with you. And you can do that with the link that I post there. Also, guys, we have our book club meeting this coming Tuesday. We're going to be reading The Master and the Margarita. The Master and the Margarita. And so The Master and Margarita is a very interesting book by Mikhail Bulgakov, considered by many literati as the greatest novel of the 20th century. If you would like to join the book club meeting, we're going to have a Zoom meeting for all of us to get together. We're going to read the first two chapters, chapters 1 and chapters 2 of The Master and Margarita, and we'll be in a Zoom meeting with everybody to talk about that. Now, I know some people haven't got the book, and so I am willing, we can move it back, not to this coming Tuesday, but the following Tuesday. We can move it towards, it'd be, what would it be? November 23rd. We can move it back to November 23rd. Just let me know if people are interested. I think only 4 people or 5 people have signed up at this point. If you guys would be interested in joining, we're going to go through this entire book. Again, one of the greatest novels in the 20th century. The plot is Satan himself comes to the Soviet Union. And there's a lot of themes in this book to discuss, to dissect, to deconstruct, to look at the archetypes, look at the theology, all these different things. If you'd be interested in that, get your copy. And again, maybe you can find a PDF or something. I don't care. However you can find it. And we're going to read 2 chapters at a time, probably every 2 weeks. Now, I was going to do the first meeting November 16th, this coming Tuesday, but I know a lot of people haven't got their book yet. Some people have mentioned they'd be interested. So if you are, let me know. We can move it back till not this coming Tuesday, but the following Tuesday, November 23rd. And I'd be totally fine with that. So let me know. Again, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. If you haven't read The Master and Margarita and you'd be like, oh, I'd be interested in that, get the book, sign up, and it'd be a lot of fun. Now, the beginning of the book, the first chapter, it's a little hard to follow. It's very discombobulated. It feels like it's going all these different places. Just get through the first chapter. And I promise the book gets a little bit better. Deanna says, what time is that? It's at 7:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on this coming Tuesday. But again, if people don't have their book, we can definitely do the following Tuesday. So I may just go ahead and change that. I was planning on this Tuesday, November 16th, but we can move it back to the following Tuesday, November 23rd, if people need that. So let me know, reach out. You can email me at you can do it through the website or churchoftheeternallogos@gmail.com. So whatever you prefer. So anyways, okay, that is the housekeeping that I wanted to discuss. Now let's get into today's stream. Providence, God's providence. Now this book right here I'm going to begin with diving into this book right here. On the Providence of God by St. John Chrysostom. I really enjoy this book. This is a nice little book. It's very easy to read. It's a series of letters that St. John Chrysostom wrote to his spiritual daughter. Here, I'll just read the back of it. St. John Chrysostom, Archbishop of Constantinople, is revered as the Church's greatest homilist and interpreter of Holy Scripture. The present treatise on the providence of God was his last work, written at the very end of his life when he was in exile in the Caucasus Mountains of Armenia. He wrote this book to encourage his faithful flock in Constantinople and elsewhere who were in distress due to his unjust banishment. And why was he banished? Because he told the empress, or the emperor's wife, that the statue that she has of herself outside Hagia Sophia is idolatry. And she didn't take too kindly to that. So she, with other hierarchs within the church, they exiled him. And he ends up dying in the mountains. But this is the last thing that he wrote before he died. Unto unjust banishment and the political intrigue and persecution surrounding it. It is believed that he has sent to his spiritual daughter, Saint Olympius. along with his last letter to her, asking her to, quote, keep constantly coming back to it as a source of spiritual strength amidst her own persecution. In reading on the providence of God, one marvels at how powerfully the author was able to affirm God's goodness and love amidst the uncertain and ignominious circumstances in which he then found himself. Again and again, St. John exhorted his beleaguered flock to patiently wait for the outcome of events, as had the righteous ones in the Old and New Testament. He brought forth as examples Job, Abraham, Joseph, King David, the three holy youths, John the Baptist, proto-martyr Stephen, and many others, all whom exhibited unwavering faith when in the face of things it looked as if it were all lost. Again, sounds similar to our times right now, does it not? St. John's meditations on God's loving care for the world were the fruit of his entire life, which he had lived in devotion to his Master, Jesus Christ, and especially of his final years when that devotion, more than ever before, had been sorely put to the test. It was with such faith and serene trust in his Lord that he came to the end of his earthly life in exile, and that he uttered his now famous final words, "Glory be to God for all things." And so this is a great, great book. Now I have a couple chapters I'd like to read to you guys, and let me then put this up right here. So On the Providence of God by St. John Chrysostom. There's a longer chapter here, chapter 9, that I would like to read. I may skip over it. Actually, I'll probably read it. But again, I love some of the stuff, and I don't even know if the chapters I chose today are going to have this in here. But he talks about how, think about biblical narratives. Think about Joseph and him being sold into slavery by his brothers, seeming a terrible tragedy, right? And that the Bible has instances of those who had incredible faith in the Lord, the incredible faith in God, and even though they were sold into bondage, even though they were captured by their enemies, not one hair was harmed on them. And in fact, in the case of Joseph, he was elevated in turn to be the person to preserve the Jews themselves because of the famine. So he was elevated to a status within the Egyptian dynasty, the Egyptian empire, to actually look out for and care for God's people. But he was sold in slavery, but he was captured by his enemies. That's God's providence. And at the same time, in God's providence, those who weren't captured by their enemies were killed. And so we have to realize that there's so much going on in the world right now that's entirely outside of our control. And because it's outside of our control, we have to focus on what is in our control. That's ultimately what we're going to be judged upon. The choices that we make, how we treat each other. What are we going to do with the opportunities before us? And maybe some of us will be captured. Maybe America will be occupied by UN soldiers and the CCP. And yet at the same time, maybe many of us will be martyred. Maybe some of us like Joseph will be elevated. Who knows? Who knows? But St. John Chrysostom in this book, it's a real easy read. This is not a complicated read whatsoever. It's not, and I will read some of the Maximus. I got St. Gregory, Palamas, and I got St. John of Damascus back here. So we're going to check out some of the church fathers. But first, I actually want to read chapter 11 and 12, and then we'll get into chapter 9. So chapter 11 in this book is titled, "That the realization of the promises did not occur immediately, and that the saints were not scandalized when they saw that in the beginning all the events were contrary to the promises." So here we go. "The righteous ones of old did not inquire into how and in what manner the promises would come to pass. And when they perceived everything to be in a desperate state according to human reckoning, they were not thrown into confusion, nor were they troubled. Rather, they endured everything with nobility, having the power of him who made the promises as a great proof of the good things to come. And in the face of adverse events, they did not fall into despair, for they knew clearly that since God God is inventive and wise. After things have been despaired of, they would be restored to a state better than before, and the things that had been promised could be brought to fulfillment with great ease. Now you think, well, how could we be restored to a place better than before? The eternal life, salvation itself. Therefore, beloved one, you too, if your afflictions come to an end in the present life, glorify God. If your life ends in difficulties, even then, be thankful and do not be scandalized, recognizing clearly the infinite providence of God, which cannot be explained, and knowing that everything will receive its appropriate end, either in the present life or in the life to come. If someone hears about the future and, being faint-hearted, is in a hurry to see it come to pass, we will tell him that the true life and the things that are constant and immovable are waiting for us there. The present things are the road, but those are the homeland. The things of this world are like spring flowers, while those to come are like immovable rocky peaks. There are crowns and compensations without end. There are prizes and rewards. There are intolerable punishments and torments for those who have done evil. But, you will say, quote, in that day, what awaits those who are scandalized, unquote. You do not speak about those who are shining even more brightly. On the contrary, those who have worn a mask of piety and are now put to shame, these you bring before us. Do you not see gold being purified, lead being tested, the chaff being separated from the wheat, the wolves from the sheep, the counterfeit from those who are truly live piously? Therefore, when you see the offenses of the former, consider the good repute of the latter. Some have stumbled, but many more have stood firm, and have brought about a greater reward for themselves, not being overthrown either by the power of those who plot against them or by the difficulty of the times. And let those who are scandalized consider themselves. The 3 youths were torn away from the priest, the temple, the altar, and all other concerns of the law, and were abandoned in the midst of a foreign land, and yet they observed the law with great precision. Likewise, David and many others. Some were carried off into captivity and were not harmed at all, while others stayed at home and had been the benefit of everything in their homeland, yet they stumbled and were condemned. So that's chapter 11 right here. And again, On the Providence of God by St. John Chrysostom. Now here's chapter 12, and this one's really interesting. Chapter 12, why evil men, demons, and the devil have been permitted in this world. While evil men, demons, and the devil have been permitted in this world. Let me drink my hot cider. Shout out to Sarge, my deceased pit bull. All right. I've been really on a kick of getting hot cider. I love it. Love it. All right. Chapter 12. Why evil men, demons, and the devil have been permitted in this world. If you inquire into why these things have been allowed, and do not give way to the unutterable principles of God's dispensations, but always take pains to inquire diligently into everything, and continue on the path, you will be quite at a loss about many other things. For instance, why have heresies been permitted? And the devil, and the demons, and evil men who cause many to stumble? And the chief question of all, why is the Antichrist coming? Who has such power of deceit that Christ says that he will do such thing as to deceive, if possible, even the elect? Matthew 12:24, or Matthew 24:24. Yet you must not inquire into these things, but rather in everything give way before the incomprehensibility of the wisdom of God. A man who is already genuinely and firmly grounded, even if he is assailed by countless waves, even if he is assailed by many countless storms, not only is he not harmed, but he even becomes stronger. But a man who is weak, feeble, and negligent, even if nothing gives him trouble, often falls. If you want to know the reason, give ear to the one that is well known to us. For he who orders everything regarding us in diverse and various ways also has many other clear reasons. Meanwhile, the one that we know is this. We say that these scandals have been allowed not so much to diminish the prizes of the noble. This is what God indicated in conversing with Job when he said, "Dost thou think that I have dwelt with thee in any other way than that thou mightest appear to be righteous?" Job chapter 40, verse 8. And Paul says, quote, "For there must also be heresies among you, that they which are approved may be made manifest among you." 1 Corinthians 11:19. But you, when you hear, for there must also be heresies among you, do not think that he said this as a command or to make a law. Certainly not. Rather, he was predicting what would happen and indicating beforehand the profit that the vigilant would gain from it. For then he says, the virtue of those who are not deceived will be seen more clearly. And that's what we're going through right now, guys. We're separating the wheat from the chaff. Separating the wheat from the chaff. In addition, there's another reason why wicked men have been allowed to exist, so that they not be excluded from the benefit that could accrue to them from their conversion, which exclusion would have happened if they had been snatched away beforehand. And thus, as Paul saved, as well as the thief, the harlot, the publican, and many others, if before their conversion they had been snatched away from this world, none of them would have been saved. Concerning the Antichrist, Paul gives another reason. And what is it? It is in order to deprive the Jews of any defense. For what excuse would they have? They would not accept Christ, but would believe in the Antichrist. Thus he says that they all might be damned who believe not the truth that is in Christ, but had pleasure in unrighteousness, that is, in the Antichrist. 2 Thessalonians 2:12. For they said they did not believe in Christ because he declared himself to be God. We stoned thee, because that thou, being a man, makest thyself God. John 10:33. And yet they heard him attributing more to the Father, and saying that he had come in accordance with the will of his Father, making this known in many ways. What will they say when they receive the Antichrist, who declares himself to be God, not mentioning the Father, but even doing the opposite, reproaching them for this? Christ foretold, I have come in my Father's name, and ye receive me not. If another shall come in his own name, him ye will receive. John 5:43. It is for these reasons that scandals have been permitted. If you speak of those who are scandalized, I will show you those who are thereby shining more brightly. And I will tell you the same thing again. Those who were able to be vigilant and watchful and thus be crowned with countless crowns should not, on account of the heedlessness and lack of attention of others, be at a disadvantage when rewards are given. They would have been wronged if they had not been given occasions for these contests. As for those who are hurt as a result, it would be fitting for them to impute their falls to themselves and to not anyone else. And they could be spoken against by those who not only have not been scandalized, but as a result have become more radiant and stronger. And so I think those words are excellent for us. And so I want to then tie this conversation into an understanding of synchronicity. So we all kind of have heard about Jungian synchronicity, right? And so I want to talk a little bit about this concept. Let me see here. Let's go. I want to talk a little bit about this concept and read this quick little article, because as we looked at this concept of providence, right? That story I told you about Abbot Tryphon and him going into the woods, finding the young man sitting on a log, getting ready to commit suicide. You would say, oh, that's a synchronicity. That's like a Jungian synchronicity. That's like the universe putting you in the right place at the right time. Could be. And so I say, as an Orthodox Christian, we don't have to necessarily give up this idea of noticing patterns, noticing these sort of the unusual casuistry of the world that we kind of find ourselves in. Yeah, it's synchronistic. Yeah, okay, it's a Jungian synchronicity, but at a higher level, it's my will choosing God's will. That's the ultimate synchronicity. And so that's where I want to tie this into then St. Gregory of Palamas, because he starts talking about the multiplicity of eyes. That you and I, we have eyes to see visual light. We have two eyes to see the world. But then we have an inner eye, the nous. And that God's providence is, again, almost like a concept of synchronicity. That it's when the two eyes actually see the same thing at the same time. Right? That Abbot Tryphon, in a way, now he was synchronistic for that young man, but say for that young man, he could see Abbot Tryphon, and then he just prayed what he believed to be his last prayer before blowing his own brains out. And then Abbot Tryphon's there. It's like the interior state of himself and the exterior eyes of his physical body. They're seeing the exact same thing at the same time. And so St. Gregory Palamas has a whole thing talking about providence in this concept. So what is synchronicity? I know many of us already know, but we're going to read this article real quick. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Carl Jung about synchronicity. So have you ever experienced an 11:11 synchronicity? Yes. And actually, again, shout out to a devotional heart and the conversation I did with her. It happened to be, again, synchronistic, that November 11th, 2018 was the day that I made a prayer to God to follow Jesus Christ and that I was going to become a Christian. Now, would you say I was Orthodox? No, I was like halfway, like 1 foot in the New Age, Gnostic, psychedelic, and then 1 foot into Christianity, reading again the Church Fathers and stuff like that. But it was almost some kind of New Agey Protestantism. But that was a significant. I remember that day. I remember sitting in my apartment in Berkeley, California, and it just came to a head. I had recently had a sort of experience connecting a lot of the Orthodox theology with what I believed to already be true as a New Age, apotheosis and theosis, the power of the spoken word and magic, and then the Logos being the Word of God, being made in the image of God, loving your neighbor as yourself, and the idea that we're all one. I connected all these different dots, and if you want to hear more about this story, go over and check out my interview with a devotional heart. I remember being in my apartment, and that day was the day that I consciously identified myself as Christian. And I even, again, in that stream, I talked about how I bought this cross right here, this Celtic crucifix, and began wearing it. I bought it that night because in my mind, I am now a Christian. I just put too many dots together. So you could say, well, that's synchronistic. That's those angel numbers, 11:11. But that's just the way that it kind of played out for myself. But anyways, continuing with the article. Sorry, I ramble. Have you ever experienced an 11:11 synchronicity? Psychologist Carl Jung coined the term synchronicity, which many of us use on a daily or weekly basis. Synchronicity, according to Carl Jung, is the coming together of inner and outer events in a way that cannot be explained by cause and effect, and that is meaningful to the observer. Again, we're going to hear providence described by St. Gregory Palamas, and I think this is a perfect concept. This concept of a Jungian synchronicity is perfect to understand Palamas. The definition of synchronicity was originally developed by Swiss psychologist Carl Gustav Jung. Jung co-defined the word to describe what he called temporarily coincident occurrences of acausal events. temporally coincident occurrences of acausal events. So non-causal, meaning that it wasn't like an inductive line of causation happening within space and time, a temporal coincident. And he says, Jung variously describes synchronicity as an acausal connecting principle, quote, i.e., a pattern of connection that cannot be explained by conventional efficient causality. Quote, meaningful coincidence and acausal parallelism. Jung introduced the concept as early as the 1920s, but only gave a full statement of it in 1951 in an Oronos lecture. Then in 1952 published a paper, Synchronicity and Acausal Connecting Principle, and a volume with a related study by the physicist and Nobel winner Wolfgang Pauli. And also, I have this article. This is a little bit of a better article. Again, Synchronicity and Acausal Principle. This is not by Carl Jung, by Joe Cambray, but this is a decent article. If you guys want to read it, you can do so. I'll share that link right now. And then here's the actual article that I'm reading, if you guys want to check that out. It was a principle that Jung felt gave conclusive evidence for his concepts of archetypes and the collective unconscious, in that it was descriptive of a governing dynamic that underlie the whole of human experience and history, social, emotional, psychological, and spiritual. Events that happen which appear at first to be a coincidence, but are later found to be causally related and termed as incoincident. Jung believed that many experiences perceived as coincidence are not merely due to chance, but instead suggested the manifestation of parallel events of circumstances reflecting this governing dynamic. Now, of course, Jung was very Gnostic, so in no way would we consider Carl Jung, quote-unquote, Christian or Orthodox. And with his sort of Gnostic psychological emphasis, you can see a sort of over-rationalized attempt to define, a scholastic, academic, psychological attempt to define this coincidental, this synchronistic occurrence. Now, as Christians, we could say, well, it's clearly God's providence, that causation itself is under the aegis of God's providence, God's will. That's why miracles can happen. God can step in and reorient physical reality, no problem. And this is, and just so you guys know, this is the difference between a sort of general providence and a special providence. So this, again, just for if you're not aware within Christian theology, and theology, divine providence, or simply providence, is God's intervention in the universe. The term divine providence is also used as a title of God. A distinction is usually made between general providence, which refers to God's continuous upholding of the existence of the natural order of the universe, and the special providence, which refers to God's extraordinary intervention in the life of people. Miracles generally fall in the latter category. So, I just wanted to highlight that. And then, just to read it real quick. The doctrine of providence in Eastern Orthodoxy is set out by St. John Tobolsk. Oh, let me pull this over. I forgot that. Divine providence in Eastern Orthodoxy is set out by St. John Tobolsk. St. John of Damascus describes it thus: providence is divine will, which manifests everything and wisely rules over everything. It was not by chance that the iniquitous Israeli king Ahab was struck by an arrow that flew in between the seams of his armor. Truly, that armor was directed by the hand of God, just as the one which struck Julian the Apostate. Only for the soldier who let fly the arrow was it accidental. It was not by chance that swallows flew into the home of Tobit and blinded the righteous man, This happened at God's command in order to hold Tobit up as an example to succeeding generations, as we learn from the angel who accompanied his son Tobias. Nothing happens by chance. It was not by chance that Caesar Augustus ordered the census to be taken the year of Christ's nativity. It was not by chance that Christ met with the Samaritan woman at the well and spoke with her. All this was foreseen and written down in the books of divine providence before the beginning of time. And so I love that, because the sort of Eastern Orthodox approach is so much more mystical than a Jungian concept of synchronicity. We're talking about the affect of God outside space and time, and doing it at a personal level. This is way beyond some sort of coincidental, I just happen to be my personal psyche, my anima, my animus. It is actually just part of the collective unconscious, and therefore I'm just connecting to archetypal patterns that exist in the collective unconscious of our species. No, as Eastern Orthodox, yeah, we have synchronistic, coincidental, providential events that happen in our lives all the time. And the more that we get closer to God, and the more it's like we let go of things to happen, and we just sort of move through the world and do what we need to do. This is what I've noticed with like working. Working is in like doing what you need to do, focusing on the stuff that you know you need to work on. It's like the more you focus on that stuff, the more you just do what you need to do, and you stop trying to force things, which I have a big problem on. I'm always trying to force things. And when you stop doing that, it's like things can fall into place in God's providence. And like, again, the synchronicities, the weird coincidental patterns, they just happen more and more and more in your life. And so yeah, I just throw that out there. Anyways, continuing on. One of Jung's favorite quotes on synchronicity was from Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll, in which the White Queen says to Alice, "It's a poor sort of memory that only works backwards." According to Occam's razor, positing an underlying mechanism for meaningful interpreted correlations is an unsupported explanation for a, quote, meaningful coincidence, if the correlations may alternatively be explained by simple coincidence. The amount of meaningful coincidence which one expects by random chance is higher than most people's intuition would lead them to believe, an observation known as Littlewood's law. Jung and followers believe that synchronous events such as simultaneous discovery happen far more often than random chance would ever allow, even after accounting for the sampling bias inherent in the fact that meaningful coincidences are noticeable while meaningless coincidences are not. In psychology and cognitive science, confirmation bias is the tendency to search for or interpret new information in a way that confirms one's preconceptions and avoids information and interpretations that contradict prior beliefs. Many critics believe that any evidence for synchronicity is due to confirmation bias and nothing else. Wolfgang Pauli, a scientist who in his professional life was severely critical of confirmation bias, lent his scientific credibility to support the theory, co-authoring a paper with Jung on the subject. Some of the evidence that Pauli cited was that ideas which occurred in his dreams would have synchronous analogs and later correspondence with distant collaborators. Jung claims that in 1805, a French writer, Émile Duchamp, was treated to some plum pudding by a stranger named Monsieur de Forquebeau. 10 years later, the writer encountered plum pudding on the menu of a Paris restaurant and wanted to order some. But the waiter told him that the last dish had already been served to another customer, who turned out to be de Forquebeau. Many years later, in 1832, Émile Duchamp was at a dinner and once again offered plum pudding. He recalled that earlier incident and told friends that only de Forquebeau was missing to make the setting complete. And in that same instance, the now senile de Forquebeau entered the room. And so then this says that it potentially could be, that Forbu was a fake name, and who knows, it could have been a fake character to describe a real event. Okay. So that is Jung's concept of synchronicity, right? And synchronicity happens in our lives all the time. I know it's happened to you guys. It happens to myself. And so it's nothing new. But how can we understand this as an Eastern Orthodox Christian? Well, I think that this little section, again, if you guys have this by St. Gregory Palamas, this is what I'm getting ready to read. St. Gregory Palamas. So let me put this up here real quick. St. Gregory Palamas on Providence. Okay, St. Gregory of Palamas on Providence. So check out. All right. So this is page 59 to 60, and I'm reading section 15 to 16, 15 to 16. So it's really just section 15 actually. But this is really good stuff. Really good stuff. So check this out. This is, again, St. Gregory Palamas on Providence. It is our purpose to communicate the teaching of the light of grace of those long-revered saints whose wisdom comes from experience, proclaiming that, quote, such is the teaching of Scripture, unquote. Thus we set forth a summary of words of Isaac, the faithful interpreter of these things. Quote, our soul, he affirms, quote, possesses two eyes, as all the fathers tell us. Yet the sight which is proper to each eye is not for the same use. With one eye we behold the secrets of nature, that is to say, the power of God, his wisdom, and providence towards us, things comprehensible by virtue and of the greatness of his governance. With the other eye we contemplate the glory of his holy nature, since it pleases God to introduce us to the spiritual mysteries. Since then these are eyes, what they see is a light. But since each possesses a power of vision designed for a particular use, a certain duality appears in the contemplation of this light, since each eye sees a different light invisible to the other eye. As the divine Isaac has explained, the one is the apprehension of the power, the wisdom, and providence of God, and in general, knowledge of the Creator through the creatures. The other is contemplation, not of the divine nature, but of the glory of his nature, which the Savior has bestowed on his disciples and through them on all who believe in him and have manifested their faith through their works. This glory he clearly desired them to see, for he says to the Father, quote, I will that they contemplate the glory you have given me, and you have loved me since the foundation of the world, unquote. And again, glorify me, Father, that the glory I have had from you since before the world began, unquote. Thus, to our human nature, he has given the glory of the Godhead, but not the divine nature. For the nature of God is one thing, his glory another, even though they be inseparable from one another. However, even though this glory is different from the divine nature, it cannot be classified amongst the things subject to time, for in its transcendence it is not, unquote, because it belongs to the divine nature in an ineffable manner. Yet it is not only that the human composite, which is united to his hypostasis, meaning the incarnated Christ, that he has given this glory with transcendence to all things, but also to his disciples. Quote, Father, he says, quote, I have given them the glory which you gave me, so that they may be perfectly one, unquote. But he wishes also that they should see the glory which he possesses in our inmost selves, and through which, properly speaking, we see God. So that's St. Gregory Palamas on Providence. I thought you guys might enjoy that. Now I have St. John of Damascus. St. John of Damascus. I don't know if you guys have read this book. I do recommend this book. Shout out to Jay Dyer. He's the one. I saw him do a stream when I was inquiring into Orthodoxy, and he gave us here. He did a stream on this book, and I bought it. And this is a great book, a really good book. So make sure you get this version too. It's 4 books in one. St. John of Damascus. And so I'm going to read 2 chapters, which are they're just little sections, but it's on Providence. So this is, again, if you have this book, it's page 257, chapter 26. Some things done depend on us, while others do not. Those things depend on us which we are free either to do or not to do. That is to say, everything which we do voluntarily. For a thing would not be said to be done voluntarily if the action did not depend on us. To put it simply, those things depend on us which incur blame or praise, and in respect to which one may be urged or bound by law. Properly speaking, all those things depend on us which pertain to the soul, and about which we deliberate. And it is about contingent... Oh, I didn't change it. Hold on. Sorry, guys. Okay. Sorry about that. St. John of Damascus. Properly speaking, all those things depend upon us which pertain to the soul and about which we deliberate. And it is about contingents, and deliberation is exercise. A contingent is that which we can do itself, and of which we can also do the opposite. Our mind makes this choice of itself, and this is the beginning of action. Those things, then, depend on us which are contingent, as, for example, to move or not to move, to start or not to start, to desire things that are not absolutely necessary or not to desire them, to lie or not to lie, to give or not to give, to rejoice when one should, and similarly not to when one should not, and all such things as imply virtue or vice, for in these things we are free. The arts also belong to the number of these contingents, because it is in our power to cultivate them if we wish, or not to cultivate them. One should note that the choice of things to be done always rests with us, but that their doing is oftentimes prevented by some disposition of divine providence. So again, this is what I was trying to highlight when I said that the synchronicities, the providence, God's providence, it's tied that it's just always a relationship between us choosing that which we know that we're supposed to do, what we need to do. It's always on us. Are we going to make that choice or not? Are we going to make that choice or not? And that's what he's talking about. Virtue, sin. And so here's the next one that I want to write. And this is his whole section on providence. So this is page 260. If you guys are following along, if you have this book, so this is page 260, chapter 29, and this one's a little bit longer. We're about 3.5 pages on this one. So, again, for those following, chapter 29, St. John of Damascus, page 260. This is Orthodox Faith, book 2. Providence, then, is the solitude which God has for existing things. And again, providence is that will of God by which all existing things receive subtle guidance, through to their end. So providence is that will of God by which all existing things receive suitable guidance through to their end, i.e. coincidences, synchronicities, providential occurrences. But if providence is God's will, then according to right reason, everything that has come about through providence has quite necessarily come about in the best manner and the most befitting of God, so that it could not have happened in a better way. Now, the maker of existing things must be the same as their provider. For it is neither fitting nor logical that one should be their creator and another their provider, because in such a case they would be definitely wanting, the one in the manner of creating and the other in that of providing. Hence, God is both creator and provider, and his power of creating, sustaining, and providing is his good will. For whatsoever the Lord pleased, he hath done in heaven and in earth, and none resisted his will. He willed all things to be made, and they were made. He wills the world to endure, and it does endure. And all things whatsoever he wills are done. Moreover, he that provides and provides well, anyone might most correctly learn from the following consideration. God alone is by nature good and wise. Consequently, and so far as he is good, he provides, because one who does not provide is not good. Even men and brute beasts naturally provide for their own offspring, and the one that does not will incur blame. Then, insofar as he is wise, he provides for existing things in the very best way. And so, bearing these things in mind, we should admire, praise, and unconditionally accept the works of providence. And should these appear to a number of people to be unjust, it is because of the fact that God's providence is beyond knowledge and beyond comprehension, and because to him alone are our thoughts and actions and the events of the future known. However, when I say all, I am referring to those things which do not depend upon us, because those which do depend upon us do not belong to providence, but to our own free will. Some of the things that are due to providence are by approval, whereas others are by permission. All those that are undeniably good are by approval, whereas all of those that are by permission, and there are many kinds. Thus, he often permits even the just man to meet with misfortunes, so that the virtue hidden in him may be made known to others, as in the case of Job. At other times, he permits something iniquitous to be done, so that through this apparently iniquitous action, some great and excellent thing may be brought about, as was the salvation of all men by the cross. And still another way, he permits the devout man to suffer evil, either so that he may not depart from his right conscience, or so that he may not fall into the presumption from the strength and grace that have been given to him, as in the case of Paul. Someone may be abandoned for a while for the correction of others, so that by observing his state they may be instructed, as in the case of Lazarus and the rich man. For we are naturally humbled when we see the sufferings of others. Someone may also be abandoned, not because of his own sins or his parents, but for the glory of another, as was the man born blind, for the glory of the Son of Man. Again, someone may be permitted to suffer as an object of emulation for others, so that because of the greatness of the glory of the one that suffered, they may without hesitation accept suffering in hope of future glory and with the desire of the good things to come, as in the case of the martyrs. A person may even be allowed at times to fall into an immoral action for the correction of another and worse affliction. For example, a certain person is conceited about his virtues and righteousness, and God permits him to fall into fornication, so that by his fall he may become conscious of his own weakness, be humbled, and draw near, confess to the Lord. One should, moreover, note that, while the choice of things that may be done rests with us, the accomplishment of the good ones is due to the cooperation of God, who in accordance with his foreknowledge justly cooperates with those who in right conscience choose the good. The accomplishment of the bad things, however, is due to abandonment by God, who, again in accordance with his foreknowledge, justly abandons us. Now, there are two kinds of abandonment. For there is one by dispensation, which is for our instruction, and there is another, which is an absolute rejection. The abandonment is by dispensation and for our instruction, which happens for the correction, salvation, and glory of the one who experiences it, or which happens either to give others an object for emulation and imitation, or even for the glory of God. On the other hand, there is an absolute abandonment, when God has done everything for a man's salvation, yet the man of his own accord remains obdurate and uncured, or rather incorrigible, and is then given over to absolute perdition, like Judas. May God spare and deliver us from this sort of abandonment. One should furthermore bear in mind that the ways of God's providence are many, and that they can neither be explained in words nor grasped by the mind. One must note that for those who accept them with thanksgiving, the attacks of adversity redound to salvation and definitely become instruments of aid. One should also bear in mind that God antecedently wills all to be saved and to attain to his kingdom. For he did not form us to be chastised, but because he is good, that we might share in his goodness. Yet because he is just, he does wish to punish sinners. So the first is called antecedent will and approval, and it has him as its cause. The second is called consequent will and permission, and it has ourselves as its cause. The last is twofold, that which is by dispensation and for our instruction and salvation, and that which is abandonment and absolute chastisement, as we have said. These, however, belong to those things which do not depend upon us. As to the things which depend upon us, the good ones he wills antecedently and approves, whereas the evil, which are essentially bad, he neither wills antecedently nor consequentially, but permits them to happen by free will. Now, that which is done under compulsion is not rational, neither can it be a virtuous act, i.e. mandates. God provides for all creation, and through all creation he does good and instructs, oftentimes using even the demons themselves for this purpose, as in the case of Job and in that of the swine. So, that is St. John of Damascus on Providence. On Providence. Guys, if you can, please smash that like. Smash that like if you're new and you have not. Again, we have a little Saint Maximus the Confessor, and then we will finish up here, and I will read some super chats. If you guys would like to support the stream, please super chat using the Streamlabs link. I would greatly appreciate that. Okay, first one is page 61, and we're reading sections 95 through 100. 95 through 100. So this is St. Maximus the Confessor. St. Maximus the Confessor. Okay. St. Maximus the Confessor on Providence. Okay, so if you guys have this book, it's just the Western Spiritual Classics. I'm on page 61, and I'm reading sections 95 through 100. The active life is a place of pasture. Knowledge of created things is water of refreshment. And this is actually from the 400 chapters on love. Human life is a shadow of death. Thus, if anyone is with God and God is with him, he clearly can say, quote, "For though I should walk in the midst of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil because you are with me." A pure mind sees things rightly. A straightforward speech brings what it sees into view, and a keen hearing hearkens to it. But the one who is deprived of these three things abuses the speaker. The one who knows the Trinity and its creation and providence, and who keeps the emotional part of his soul unattached, is with God. The rod is said to signify God's judgment, and his staff his providence. Thus, the one who has obtained knowledge of these things can say, "Your rod and your staff have given me comfort." When the mind has become stripped of passions and enlightened in the completion of beings, then it can be in God and pray as it ought. Okay, now we're flipping over to page 77. For anybody who's following, we're going to be reading 17 through 22. The purpose of divine providence is to unify by an upright faith the spiritual love, those who have been separated in diverse ways by vice. Indeed, it was because of this that the Savior suffered. Quote, "to gather together into one the children of God who were dispersed," unquote. Therefore, the one who does not endure disturbances or bear up under distress or undergo hardship walks outside divine love and the purpose of providence. If love is patient and kind, unquote, how can the person who is faint-hearted in the troubles that befall him and who consequently deals wickedly with those who offend him, cutting himself away from love for them, help but fall away from the purpose of divine providence? Be on guard, lest the vice that separates you from your brother be not found in your brother, but in you, and hasten to be reconciled to him, lest you fall away from the commandment of love. Do not disdain the commandment of love, because it is by you your will be a son of God. If you transgress it, you will become the son of Gehenna. What separates you from the love of friends is this: envying or being envied, hurting or being hurt, insulting or being insulted, and suspicious thoughts. May you never have done or experienced any of these things by which you might be separated from your friend's love. A temptation came upon you from your brother, and the hurt led you to hate. Do not be overcome with hate, but overcome hate with love. You will prevail in this way. Pray for him sincerely to God. Accept his apology, or else come up with an apology for him yourself. Think of yourself as the cause of the temptation, and be patient until the cloud has passed by. Next is 141, page 141. Okay, page 141, and we're going to be reading 7. What? Oh, 149. I'm sorry. 149. We're on page 149. Sections 7 through 10. Just as sin is the fruit of disobedience, so is virtue the fruit of obedience. And just as the transgression of the commandments is a concomitant of disobedience and a separation from the one who enjoyed them, so does the keeping of the commandments and union with the one who gave them follow obedience. Therefore, the one who has observed a commandment out of obedience has both fulfilled righteousness and also preserved unbroken the union of love, which is the giver of all commandments. But the one who out of disobedience transgresses a commandment has both committed sin and separated himself as well from loving union with the giver of commandments. The one who rallies from the division caused by disobedience first separates himself from the passions, then from passionate thoughts, then from nature and the things of nature, then from concepts and knowledge derived from them, and finally, getting away from the abundant variety of the reasons concerning providence, divine providence, he reaches in a way which transcends knowledge, the very word, the logos of God himself. In him, the mind considers its own stability and rejoices with unutterable joy as a peace comes from God, which surpasses all understanding and which continually keeps secure the one who is worthy of it. All right. Next one is page 151. 151, sections 16 and 17. The one who is instructed for a time about the reason of the monad fully recognizes as well the reasons of divine providence and judgment associated with it. Thus he judges it a good thing, as did Peter. The three tenets he made by him for those who appear, that is, the three ways of salvation, virtue, knowledge, and theology. The first one requires the practice of courage and chastity, of which the blessed Elijah is a figure. The second is the righteousness of natural contemplation, which the great Moses showed in his life. The third is the pure perfection of wisdom, which the Lord revealed. Tenets are spoken of because there are other appointed places better and more distinguished than these, which those who are worthy will receive in the future. The active man is said to dwell on the level of flesh, as one who through the virtues cuts away the attachment of the soul to the body and drives away from himself the deceitfulness of material things. The man of knowledge is likewise said to dwell in the same flesh as the one who still contemplates the truth in mirrors and enigmas. For not yet are the self-existing forms of blessings beheld by him as they are, in a face-to-face enjoyment. For in comparison with the goods which lie in the future, every saint goes around crying, I am but a wayfarer and a pilgrim before you, as were all of my fathers. All right, last one of St. Maximus the Confessor, talking about providence, is right here. And this is, again, on the chapters of knowledge by St. Maximus the Confessor, the chapters of knowledge. And considering the loftiness and divine infinity, we should not despair that God's love for man cannot reach all the way to us from the heights. Neither when we ponder the infinite depth of our fall in sin should we disbelieve that a resurrection of dead virtue can take place in us. For God can accomplish both these things. He can come down and illuminate our mind through knowledge, and likewise, he can raise up virtue in us once again and exalt us to himself through the works of justification. As Scripture has it, quote, do not say in your heart, who shall go up into heaven, that is to bring Christ down, or who shall go up into the abyss, that is to bring Christ up from the dead. It is possible, unquote. It is possible to interpret abyss in another way as everything which is after God, in which the complete word, the logos of God, is present to all of them through providence in a complete way. As life comes to those who are dead, for all things are dead if they have life only through participation. But heaven is to be understood as God's natural hiddenness, which takes him beyond everyone's grasp. If it can also be interpreted as the meaning of theology, as the abyss cannot unreasonably be regarded in my interpretation as the mystery of the incarnation. Both of these are hard to understand and to prove in any definite way. It is better to say that they are completely inaccessible if they are searched after apart from faith. Okay. That does it, guys. So that is the Church Fathers on providence. And the idea of today's stream is just to give a little bit of hope, guys, that we are in, yes, very precarious times. Are we in the end times? Maybe. I'm not positive. But it's our providence to be here. You and I are supposed to be here. We are to resist, and we are to align our individual free wills with the will of God. This is how we elevate. This is how we get out of here. This is what we are called to do. And so a lot of us are plagued with many synchronicities, and synchronicities are grand and wonderful, but what are we doing? And are we being Christ in the midst? Are we being conduits and tools for God? This is something that we all need to contemplate and aspire towards. So with that being said, I'm going to read some super chats, and I hope you guys enjoyed this stream. Please smash that like if you guys could, and I'm going to read some super chats real quick. And guys, and if you'd like to support, you'd like to throw in a super chat, please use the Streamlabs link, and unless you prefer to use YouTube, you can use the YouTube as well, whatever one you prefer. So thank you all very, very much. Please smash that like if you guys could. All right, first super chat comes from Anna DS. Thank you very much, Orthodox sister. Thank you so much for being here. She says, I haven't found a church yet where I am. Pray for me, please. Will do, Anna. Didn't mean to be any shots fired earlier. I wasn't trying to put anybody on the hot seat or call anybody out. I was just saying that for some people, it seems like that they are almost the quote unquote Orthodox or an Orthodox inquirer for like over a year. And it's like, eventually you got to go to church. You got to go find a parish. You got to read Scripture. You got to do your prayers. I think Ortho Twitter, for example, is the absolute worst form of orthodoxy. And I see on Ortho Twitter guys who are just, they're, again, and maybe this is too much of my judgment, so again, Lord have mercy on me, but just weaklings, pathetic, skinny guys, and they just like beating people with the truth of orthodoxy, and it drives me nuts. Orthodoxy is true. Orthodoxy is the true church. But unless you're embodying it, unless you're building yourself up, doing the right things, like I really just can't stand and don't have a lot of time for those who want to beat people with orthodoxy and then they themselves, it's like, what are you doing? And so I'm not a big fan of Orthodox Twitter because on Orthodox Twitter, you can get a following and not really contribute much. So anyways, I'm just throwing that out there. Didn't mean to fire shots at anybody or anything. I have no idea what people's situations are. I just hope that, more people take it seriously. And I know, Anna, I know that you do, and shout out to you and your family. I hope everything's going well. And some people live in circumstances where it's hard to find a church. It's hard to become a catechumen, so I understand. And so I definitely will say a prayer for you tonight, Anna, and that you are able to find a good parish to attend and make your way into the Orthodox Church. So shout out to you, and thank you very, very much for your support. I truly appreciate it. God bless you and your family, and hope everything is going well. So thank you very much, Anna. Next super chat comes from Kinesis Films. Kinesis Films throws in super chat and just says thank you. Well, thank you very much, Kinesis Films, for your super chat. I really, really appreciate it. So thank you very, very much, Kinesis Films. Thank you, brother. Or sister, I guess I shouldn't gender you. I don't know what your gender is. But thank you very much for your support. And thank you very much for your super chat. Next super chat comes from John World. Shout out to John World. Very generous super chat. Thank you very much, brother, for the $40. He says, need to finally make it to liturgy tomorrow and get over my social anxiety. If everyone can pray for me to overcome this, I'd greatly appreciate it. My name is John. Yes, John. All right, guys, we need to write these down. Everybody pray for Anna, that she finds a parish. And everybody pray for John, that he gets over his social anxiety and goes to church tomorrow. Okay, let me write this down. Okay, we are all going, this is what all of us are going to do tonight. Write it down, guys. We are all going to pray for Anna, that she may find a parish. Find a parish. And we're all going to pray for John, that he gets over his social anxiety and goes to church tomorrow. So pray for John, that he gets over his social anxiety and goes to church tomorrow. Amen to that. Amen to that. So, John, Anna, I will definitely be saying a prayer for you. I hope everybody out there does the same. So, please do the same. Next super chat comes from Nathaniel. And he says, David, is this the Nathaniel? It is. Oh, my gosh. So Nathaniel, shout out to Nathaniel. Shout out to your beautiful family, brother. God bless you and yours. I hope everything's going well. David is being generous with his one-on-ones. Your time and his are priceless. Oh, your time and his are priceless. David, please take this money and buy a pocket knife. I love it. Buy a pocket knife. Finally, a synchronicity for you from 1916, 11:11, Jerusalem, or Jeremiah. Here, let me put that. Jeremiah 29:13. Jeremiah 29:13. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. Oh, what a perfect verse. Nathaniel, thank you so much, brother. Thank you very, very much. What a perfect verse. Also, Jeremiah starts on page 1111 in my ortho book. No way, dude. No way. Let me check this out. 1111. It does. The book of Jeremiah starts on page, right here is page 1111. That's hilarious. That's hilarious. Wow. Thank you. Thank you very, very much, Nathaniel. Again, shout out to your beautiful family, brother. God bless you all. I hope everything is going well. And Nathaniel had a very poignant criticism. He said, I watched your men's fashion stream, but I got a bit of a criticism. I said, well, what's that? You didn't have a men's pocket watch, or a pocket knife, I'm sorry. You didn't have a men's pocket knife. I was like, oh, touche, I don't. So that's why he says, David, please take this money and buy a pocket knife. Finally, a synchronicity for you from 1916, 11:11. Jeremiah 29:13, again, which reads, you will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. And Jeremiah starts on page 1111 in my Ortho Study Bible, which it surely does. It really, really does. So, Nathaniel, thank you so much, brother. God bless you. God bless your family. I hope everything's going well in this difficult time. And so thank you for the generous super chat. He said, again, David is being generous with his time for one-on-ones. Your time and his are priceless. David, please take this money and buy a pocket knife. Finally, a synchronicity for you from 1916, 11:11. Jeremiah 29:13, and also Jeremiah starts on page 11:11. That's awesome. That is awesome. Thank you very much, Nathaniel, for that. I really appreciate it, brother. Next super chat comes from Wefa9. Wefa9, currently a Christian existentialist. Want to join the Orthodox Church. How can I join the Orthodox Church and choose the right church? Well, Wefa9. Christian existentialist. Interesting. I would say go to your Google Maps, your Apple Maps, or whatever. The verse came from grandmother's prayer book published in 1916. Oh, nice. So that is awesome. Wefa 9, currently a Christian existentialist, want to join the Orthodox Church. How can I join the Orthodox Church and choose the right church? Wefa 9, I would find, okay, what are some of the closest Orthodox churches to you? I would begin there. And then I would go in person, go talk to the priest, go see a divine liturgy. Just go sit there. Now, it may feel uncomfortable. Everybody's going to be crossing themselves. Everybody's going to be bowing all the time. People are going to be reciting the liturgy that you're probably not going to be familiar with. So it may be uncomfortable, but you have to go. If you're able to, I would recommend the Greek churches tend to be very Greek. So if you go to a Greek church, there tend to be mostly all Greek people there, and the liturgies tend to be in all Greek. I go to an Antiochian church, and so if you go to an Antiochian church, it's definitely going to be in all English. So that's the nice part. The liturgical service will be in all English, and many of the people there are going to be converts. So, so go to your maps, see what churches and jurisdictions are in the area. Rokor tend to be a good parish to go to. Now, it may be in Church Slavonic, it may be in English. Depends on the church. So If you can, I would begin with an Antiochian church, just because that way you know that it's going to be in English. That's where I go. It's generally a good jurisdiction. There have been contentions with some of the hierarchs, but that's a whole nother thing that as an inquirer you don't need to worry about. All you need to do is go to a church, experience the liturgy, and talk to the priest. And tell them what you're interested in. Talk to them. And then maybe you get a wrong vibe. I went to this church. I talked to somebody recently. They're in Scotland. Shout out to Dio. Shout out to your sister. God bless both of you. Hopefully you're watching the stream. And they went to a Greek church in Scotland. They were not well received. Nobody talked to them. They gave them dirty looks. So they felt very uncomfortable at that particular parish. Because they don't look Greek. Then the Russian church that's close to them hasn't even opened because of COVID. So if the church isn't even open, I would say that's probably a red flag. If they are open, go and then just see. Every parish is going to be different. And there's great Greek parishes. By the way, I have friends that are non-Greeks. They're American converts. They go to a Greek parish, and it's awesome. They love the priest. They love the parishioners. They're open with welcome. So I know generally in the Orthodox sphere, people, the Greek churches feel very Greek and sometimes not as warm, but that's not always the case. So if maybe you only have a Greek church, go to the Greek church. Go talk to the priest. You got to experience it. So just WEFA 9, check out what is close to you and go tomorrow. Just go. Just go. Just go. And then see what the experience is. See what the experience is. And so that's my advice. And then if you have any questions, email me, churchoftheeternallogos@gmail.com, churchoftheeternallogos@gmail.com. Tell me your experience. Let me know. If you have questions, you feel, XYZ happens, let me know. Talk to me. So WEFA 9, I hope that you go to church tomorrow. Please go to church. Oh, Nectaria. Thank you so much, Nectaria. Well, speaking of Greeks, we have our wonderful, wonderful, wonderful Greek Orthodox sister. Shout out to Nectaria. I really appreciate your friendship. Thank you so much, Nectaria, for all the support. Shout out to Brady, or is it Brady or Brody? I think it was Brady. It's Brady. Shout out to Brady and Petey. She knows what I'm talking about. She's got her hands full for sure. Shout out to Nectaria and Brady and Petey. God bless you. Thank you so much for all the support. I really, really appreciate it. I hope everything's doing well. Sorry for the butt dial yesterday at the gym. I apologize about that. But thank you so much for the super chat. Nectaria throws in $50 and says, God bless you. Well, God bless you, Nectaria. God bless you, Brody. And God bless you, Petey. Hope everything's going well with you guys. And you're staying warm, and I know you're staying busy with work. So thank you very, very much with all the support. I really appreciate it. I really, really do. Thank you so much, Nectaria. So anyways, next super chat. Shout out to Nectaria, Brody, and Petey. It comes from Anna. Again, Anna throws in another $4.99 and says, this stream was so perfect for me. Synchronicity? No, God. I love that. Yeah, let me just refresh that so you guys can see it. Let's see. Repeat alert. Look, she says, this stream was so perfect for me. Synchronicity? No, God. And then prayer hands. Absolutely, it was God. So thank you guys. Thank you guys so much for all the support. Thank you guys for the super chats. Really, really appreciate it. Again, anybody out there who's an acquirer, anybody who's been thinking about, shout out John World. I'm going to a row core that's in English, and even the priest as a convert. Amen to that, John. So John World going to his first liturgy tomorrow. Again, guys, we're praying. Write these names out. We're praying for Anna tonight to find a parish, and we're praying for John and his social anxiety to go to church. Go to church. Did somebody? Yeah. And then, yeah. So anyways, that is Jerry says it was really a 10 out of 10 stream. Well, thank you so much, Jerry. I really appreciate that, brother. Shout out to you and young Babushka. I hope everything's going well with y'all. Thank you very, very much. Let's see. Oh, we got another super chat. Comes from Virile Journey, and says, will you ever do a stream on the book of Job? Yeah. Actually, Virile Journey, I was thinking about doing a stream on the book of Job. I know it's not going to be the most popular stream, but I don't know. I do the pop cultural stuff. I do the magic stuff. I do the psychedelic stuff. And so, so I definitely was planning on doing a stream, on the book of Job. Now it is a longer book, but there's a lot we can learn from Job. He remains faithful to the end, and he's compensated with double what he lost in the beginning. And that may happen to us. Maybe we're not in the end times. Maybe all of us are going to be tested so severely that we are going to lose some of the stuff that we have. Maybe not. I don't know. Difficult times that we are in. And Job can definitely be an example for many of us. Patience and faithfulness can get us a long way. So I will definitely do a stream on Job. I want to do some Christmas streams. I'm really looking forward to after Thanksgiving, because there's so many topics I want to get into regarding Christmas. I don't know about you guys, but I feel really festive this year. I'm kind of an Oscar the Grouch. I'm kind of an Ebenezer. I'm a Scrooge. I don't really celebrate. I'm not a very festive person, but I tell you, in my heart this year, it's like I want to watch Christmas movies. I don't know what it is. I want to watch Christmas movies. I can't wait for Christmas this year. So after Thanksgiving, we'll definitely be doing some Christmas-themed streams, and I'm looking forward to diving into different topics, Christmas symbolism, scriptural stuff. So I really hope it's a white Christmas. I'm in Indiana, so it still snows, so I'm really hoping for a white Christmas. So anyways, Virile Journey, thank you very much for the $4.99. I truly appreciate that. And will you ever do a stream on the book of Job? I will do a stream on the book of Job eventually. Right now I'm just kind of busy with some other stuff when I'm not doing streaming, but I promise that I definitely will. I definitely will at some point. Jerry says, she says, what's up, LOL. Shout out to, so for those of you who don't know, Dangerfield Henley, one of our mods here in the COTEL live chat, he had a great name for Exposing Powerful Lies live stream, our good brother Jerry, and his, I'm sure, beautiful Orthodox girlfriend. He called her Young Babushka, so I thought that was hilarious and funny. Good little quip. And so he said she's actually watching. Well, shout out to her. God bless her and her family, and hope everything is going well. New super chat comes from Joe N, and he says, recent convert attending a Greek church in Nebraska. The priest is very welcoming to converts, and in fact places an emphasis on pan-ethnic Orthodoxy. Perfect example. Thank you, Joe N, for this super chat. Because the Greek churches tend to have the worst reputation in regards to non-Greek people attending. But I know for a fact, shout out to Chase Haggard, he goes to a Greek church. He loves his priest. He has a great parish. And so there's so many people that are Americans, converts, that actually go to Greek churches and love their parish, love their priest. So some people, again, shout out to Dio and his sister. They had a terrible experience at a Greek church in Scotland. Shame on them for the way that they treated them. Shame on them for being so cold. Shame on them for being so unwelcoming and unreceiving to an inquirer into the faith. But there's plenty of Greek churches that are incredible with incredible Greek priests, no matter what the archbishop's doing, right? This is the thing now, again, just as I talked about with the priest that I went to, who was literally promoting the Stabbies and, very political stance inside his homily, that it's a parish by parish thing at this point. Some jurisdictions are tend to be better than others, but it just depends. That's why if you're an inquirer, just go. Maybe you have a bad experience, go to another one. Go talk to the priest, figure out what it's like. Talk to the parishioners, and you'll see that it just depends on the priest and the parish, and everyone's different, no matter what the jurisdiction. I guarantee you, there is Greek parishes in the country with way better priests and a way better parish life that is way more welcoming to non-Greeks than the OCA or the Antiochians or the Rocors. So you just got to go and find out. But that's part of what we just read on Providence by these church fathers is you got to go. God can't, again, the synchronicity, the providence, it can't happen until you get your feet in action. That's what St. John of Damascus was talking about. That you got to get going. It's on you. You got to move your feet. You got to go to church. That's the only way that the synchronicity or God's providence, you go to church and all of a sudden, wow, it was great. XYZ happened. I met, Bobby and John or whoever or whatever, or I end up meeting my future wife. You got to go to church. You can't sit here. Orthodoxy cannot just be an intellectual activity. Too many of these young guys online, that's all it is they want to debate and beat people with orthodoxy, and you find out they don't even go to church. So sorry, I'm ranting and raving again. But thank you very much, Joe N, for the super chat, $5. He says, recent convert attending a Greek church in Nebraska. The priest is very welcoming to converts and in fact places an infinite emphasis on pan-ethnic orthodoxy. So amen to that. Amen to that. WEFA 9. Coincidentally, I'm in Nebraska as well. Maybe it's the same church. So, Joe N, try to hook up here with WEFA 9 in the live chat. Maybe you guys can go to church together. So go, that would be awesome. Donna S says, my Greek church is very open and very large, almost 200 fans. Whoa, Donna, dang, that's a big church. Wow. Anyways, yeah, so great. WEFA 9, try to get in contact with Joe N, and maybe you guys can meet up. Maybe you guys are in both. I don't know. What are you guys in Lincoln? I don't know. That's the only city I know of in Nebraska. Long drive across Nebraska. I've done that on my way to Colorado and from Colorado a few times. So, anyways, thank you very much, Joe N, for the super chat. Yeah, WEFA, are you in Lincoln or Omaha, bro? Are you in Lincoln or Omaha? Because Omaha, Joe Nadel, where you at, bruh? So, hope, again, this is the beauty. Synchronicity, right? Providence, maybe. Oh, he's in Lincoln. Dang. All right. Close. But anyways, guys, WEFA 9, go check out your parish. Go check out the church. Again, if you need to or if you would like to, feel free to email me. We can chat. And then Joe Nadel, shout out to you, brother. Thank you for the super chat. So he's telling him, try St. Nick's in Omaha. There you go. And 'tis the season, right? St. Nicholas. 'Tis the season. So WEFA 9, go check out St. Nick's in Omaha. And again, shoot me an email. Let me know how it goes, brother. God willing, it's going to be a good experience. You'll see a beautiful liturgy, and you'll be able to meet people with similar minds and a similar desire for Christ. So, anyways, guys, I've been on here long enough, ranting and raving. If you guys appreciate, please smash that like, and I will be back either Monday or Tuesday. Again, Tuesday we're going to do the book club. The Master and Margarita. However, maybe I'll move it back one more week just so more people can sign up, get the book, and then read chapters 1 and 2. So maybe I'll keep you posted. Maybe when I'll stream Monday and then see if people have reached out through emails or whatnot. I may move it back 1 week, so maybe November 23rd we'll start the book club. But yeah, get your copy of The Master and Margarita. Get through the first chapter. It's a little confusing. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but I promise it gets better. And so I will see you guys next time. Again, keep Anna in your prayers that she may find a parish, and keep John in your prayers that he may get over his social anxiety and go to church tomorrow. So much love from Australia, says Urshman. Shout out to all our Australian brothers and sisters. God bless you all. Stay strong. Stay strong. So anyways, I will catch you all next time, most likely Monday. So until